Hello there. My name is Simon Goncharenko with Safeguard Solutions, and this is your episode 3 of DataSpace podcast. With me today, I have Ron Fleischman, who is a business development manager for the USA HVAC and Data Center Drives division of a global Swiss-Swedish, that's a mouthful to pronounce, corporation that is a ABB group is what it's called, and it's number 341 on Fortune Global 500 list, with headquartered in Zurich, Switzerland, with 147,000 employees around the globe. It's a pretty interesting company, and a lot of their recent research and development has been in the area of data centers. So I thought Ron would be a very interesting individual to talk about new technology, power savings, and all things variable frequency drives and those kinds of things. Hi, Ron. How are you?
I am doing great today, Simon. How are you doing?
Good, good. Thank you so much for being willing to be with me.
No worries. And you're correct. It's a Swiss company, mouthful for me as well. The Drives Group specifically is based out of Helsinki, Finland, and then the Milwaukee area here in the U.S.
All right. Okay. So let's jump right on in, if you don't mind. Talk to me. One of the things that you guys have been making splash with in news recently, particularly when it comes to the critical environment space, is the whole idea of variable speed drives, or sometimes they're referred to as variable frequency drives, VFDs. Tell me what they are and why they're a big deal.
So the very basic explanation is they control the speed of electric motors. Like a dimmer on a light switch that makes it bright and dim, they make electric motors go fast and slow. The space that I'm specifically involved with, which is HVAC generally and data center cooling, is the drive. Yes, it's controlling. Why do you care? That's the question. Why do you care? Just a quick example. I'm not going to get technical. Just let me wax there for a moment. You would think if you slow down the speed of a motor, say to half speed, that you're saving half the power, right? Well, no. Actually, I mean, that's an intuitive thing. But say a fan, there's something called fan affinity laws, and it's a cube relationship. So when you slow down the motor to 50%, you're only using 1/8 power. So, wow. Even at slowing it down to 90%, if you do the math, you're saving like 20% power. So it's huge power savings, and the PUE or that ratio of how much power are you using to what result you're getting on a data center is huge. And data centers use lots and lots and lots of energy. So this is a huge cost savings. One of the biggest power consumption functions in a data center is cooling. So that's what and also by being able to vary the speed of the drive, if you only need 50%, you get 50%. Without that, you're 100% all the time. And if you don't need it, you just have to dump it somewhere. And so drives have been around a long time, since the 90s. They're very mature. There's, I like to say we're the best, but there's lots of good manufacturers out there. So put a drive on every electric motor. There's a huge payback. Plus, you have better process control. And process control, better outcome, more reliability. Reliability is a huge, huge word for the DataSpace Center.
No,
so
you're absolutely right. No, you're absolutely right, and I appreciate it. And just in your answer, actually, you gave me a couple of other things that I want to piggyback on, if you don't mind. So first, you mentioned about the electricity consumption, and the research is out. I mean, there's a lot of data out there. I think the globally data center industry consumes about 1% of the global electricity production. And you're right, 40% of that electricity consumption actually goes to cooling and to all things cooling. So you're absolutely right about that. And so with that, there's been a tremendous push, and we've seen a lot of different operators try a lot of different things to decrease that PUE, which you of course brought up, and And it seems like there's been a bit of a stall at about 1.7 is kind of where everyone has gotten to. So my question to you, kind of pushing back a little bit, or I guess peeling the other layers of this onion that you've already started peeling, how can variable frequency drives, or can they in fact help data centers to achieve a further savings and kind of push further down from that 1.7 PUE?
Absolutely. As I've already covered, one aspect is just straight out, don't deliver more than you need.
Right.
And a drive allows you to do that. But there are other aspects to it electrically. There's something called power factor. Power factor, it really depends on what country you're sitting in as to what we mean when we say that. But there's something specifically displacement power factor, which is just a shift between current and voltage. Bottom line is the power factor, displacement power factor defines how much of that power that the utility is delivering to your facility can you use to actually do work with. So the numbers aren't exactly this, but pretty close. The objective is a 1.0 power factor, okay? If you have a 0.8 power factor, that means that only 80% of that power being delivered is actually kW. The rest of it is just reactive power that some would argue, but for the most part, you cannot do work with that. So if you need 100%, now the utility has to deliver more power. So that's displacement power factor. Now there's something called total power factor that has to do with what some people think is magic. It's not magic at all. It's very simple. It's called harmonics. I have a little bit of a musician background. When I first heard that, I go like, oh yeah, I get that. No. That's it helps you understand it. But simply put, harmonics is simply disturbances on your electrical system. Switch mode power supplies, because of the way they draw current from the system, and I'll explain that real briefly, they cause disturbances. And those disturbances called something called distortion out there on the system, and now sine waves aren't sine waves anymore. And there are devices out there that don't like that. Additionally, that harmonic current, again, does not do work. It's just losses. Those disturbances cause heating. They cause disruptions in reliability in the system. And that's all VFDs, all standard, what they call 6-pulse VFDs, PWM output. We won't dive into that. Go look it up. There's lots of information on it. They cause these disturbances on the system. And there are technologies, available today in variable frequency drives or variable speed drives that essentially, well, for sure, greatly reduce those disturbances, harmonics. And then there are some technologies out there that we offer and other offers that almost makes it go away. And not that there's different techniques. One is generate the harmonics, then filter them. The other technique, which I'm a big fan of, is just don't generate the harmonics to start off with. That's another 4-hour conversation about that. But that's the high level of it.
Thank you, Dr. Fleischman. I feel like I've just sat through the electrical engineering 101 class, so I do appreciate that.
For clarification, I'm still EIT after 40 years in the industry, so that means I'm still in engineering and training. And but when you've been around for 40 years, you're going to pick up something whether you want to or not, right? But thank you.
Absolutely. No, they're very, very interesting. So, I mean, it's interesting because just as you've mentioned, air handlers, water pumps, cooling towers, chillers, I mean, all of these use electric motors, and every one of these is utilized in data centers. And what you're saying is that each and every one of these can actually utilize these drives and therefore have a much greater control than what they're currently, the current capability potentially.
Absolutely. Much greater control, and with the proper technology, much cleaner power, which means higher efficiency and higher reliability.
Right. Which is, those are the key terms in data center industry today: efficiency and reliability. Absolutely.
And this one, risk mitigation.
Absolutely.
That's real. And if we're not going after that, we're missing it.
Absolutely. No, that's very, very true. So, man, there's so many other things that I was going to pick up on that, but let's talk about. I wanted to have you talk a little bit about the switchgear, some of the latest innovations and offerings that in this space that you're familiar with. Can you talk to that a little bit?
I can do that. That's not my expertise. It's not the area that I live in, honestly. But without going into details, because I don't have the information to go into the details, I know there's switchgear out there that's it's smart switchgear, if you will. It actually monitors what's going on your power system. It can talk to your building automation system. It can be controlled by your building automation system. Some of this is new, some of it's not. The Internet of Things, everything has to be integrated into this, or that's the direction everything is going in. But this smart switchgear, again, gives you better reliability, better control in your system. The harmonics I was talking about, you can get switchgear that monitors the harmonics, monitors the power factor. So a switchgear guy could take that and really run with it. But,
Yeah.
I've touched a few pieces of switchgear, so that I just told you what I know about switchgear.
No, and that's great, actually, which is perfect. But the other thing that I think I was driving at as well, too, as I'm thinking about this is some of the information that I've been seeing, some of the newest apps like DriveTune, I believe that came out from you guys. Doesn't that eliminate some of the risks associated with arc flash and switchgear work? Is that correct? Am I on the right path?
Absolutely. Let's go back to specifically drives. The current generation of drive that we have out has an option for a Bluetooth keypad. And that allows you to be able to stand back, 15 feet, 60 feet, 100 feet if you have binoculars, right? And actually operate the drive, start up the drive. So the things that don't require you to touch it, you can stay outside of that arc flash zone. So that's one option. Honestly, a lot of people in the data center space don't like anything that has a Bluetooth radio or Wi-Fi capabilities. That is changing. As long as it's secure, everybody's good. The other part of it, not related to, say, that particular control panel or keypad, is the ability to control a lot of this or all of it over your building automation system. So back in the day when you had to actually walk up to a piece of equipment to change the speed, now you can sit in, a control room like the Starship Enterprise and control everything from one place or from a different state or a different country. So
Right.
Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, this is really neat. And I have another follow-up question on that. And again, I know some of this is going to go in and out of your particular expertise, but you've handled the questions that were not exactly in your area quite well so far. So I think I have no doubt with 40 years of experience, you can handle this next one as well.
And the disclaimer, if I said anything wrong, I wasn't the expert.
There you go. That's
I know experts.
There you go. With that in mind, let's talk about the future of standard operating procedures. How is your smart drives or your VFDs, how is that impacting the future of SOPs?
Well, it gives you more visibility, as far as a maintenance routine, if you will. A lot of what required you to go out and actually touch the drive, pull information out of the drive while standing at the drive, or the piece of switchgear, or the transformer. Now you can pull that information remotely, right, and even monitor it real time. And have data logs. So if you do have a power anomaly or a power outage or something went down in your facility, or there was a lightning strike, you've got a record of this, and you can actually go back and do some real root cause analysis instead of just reactionary, it blew up, replace it, get my facility running. Fine, that's good, that's important, but what caused it? Absolutely. And that's something in the past that, I've been in facilities as well. And, if somebody were to ask me what cause is, it's like, I don't know. My facility's running again. I don't know. Don't care. don't have time to go find it. But with today's technology, the data can always be there so that you can go back and root cause something.
Right.
I hope that answers your question.
Oh yeah, it does actually. It was kind of a generic question, and you could take any one of the routes. So that's very good. Question. So in your 40 years of experience, you worked for a number of different companies, and so I'm gonna go a little bit more personal. How is ABB different from the other folks that you've worked for, and what is it that you appreciate about your current company?
Wow. I've been with ABB about 6 years. I've known ABB for my entire career. True story. It's just one of those companies that, you always have these bad stories you can tell about somebody. I didn't have any. So when I had the opportunity to come to ABB, I was very, very excited about that. And the culture at ABB that I love, part of it is we are a technology leader. It's just a fact. We're a technology leader, but the people culture is awesome. I know, the group that I'm in, it feels like family. Everybody's working to accomplish the right objective. And now here's one of the big things that I loved is the way that was a little bit different than some of the companies I may have worked for, and they were all good companies, is the way we react. When we do everything right, that's easy, right? When you do everything right, that's easy. But when something goes wrong, what do? How do you react? Do you own it? Instead of, well, Mr. Customer, prove to me that I'm wrong, and then I'll come in there and do something. And I've been in those environments as well. At ABB, it's a collaborative environment to where, okay, let's find out what happens. Let's find out what we have to do to get you back online, get your facility running, and let's gather some data along the way. If we can't figure out what's going on, then we'll figure that out after all the smoke clears. And wow, does that create customer loyalty? But it's, legally it's not a partnership, but as far as collaboratively, if that's a word, it's more of a partnership mentality. You've got a challenge. I'll determine a solution. We will determine a solution and implement that solution. And then, obviously, business-wise, somebody's got to pay for it. But sometimes I've seen to where that decision was made after the fact, because the most important thing is get the customer back up and running.
Wow. And that's such a key factor. And I think one of the things we've learned from just the most recent COVID-19 situations is that it's the relationships that really, really matter. And I think it's been a great test of those relationships. Speaking of COVID-19, what impact has it had on your business, if any?
Honestly, I'm probably not to even address that, but I know in our group, I'll just say this at a very general level. I've never been busier, and not busy just to be busy, productive. So within my little small group, I can make that statement. Outside of that, there's official statements out there, but
right.
Yes. But I'll say this from a personal level, and I've observed this with other people, is, today we're doing meetings like this, right? Zoom meetings, Skype meetings, Teams, Blue Jeans, whatever it is. And I'm a big believer in that personal touch. That's kind of, just basics 101, right? I have gotten to know my customers better during this time than I ever did before, because now they're in my spare room, I'm in their spare room or basement, or the kids and the dogs are running in the background. It's okay to ask, how's your family? How is everybody? And there's just been this I don't know what word to use, this intimacy in relationship that we never had that opportunity before. It was, put on your coat, in your slacks and go in there, do business, your business, their business. Yes, there's some personal stuff, and there's a few people you have that relationship, but now it's every single person you touch with in a virtual meeting, if you will. With great adversity comes great opportunity.
That's an awesome way to look at it. I really appreciated that perspective, because it's a true way of finding the silver lining in this situation that we've had. And you're right, there's been a lot of negatives. There has been a lot of market impact, and frankly, when I asked, I really didn't want you to issue an official ABB statement, which you of course didn't. You just gave me a personal observation, and that's really what I was asking for. But what an awesome perspective you have, and what an incredible opportunity to see something really positive coming out of something really negative. And it's that forced interaction, that forced intimacy that, prior to this, we were trying really hard to keep the business and the home lives kind of separate, which of course any psychologist is going to tell you that's not possible at all. But now we haven't been forced to work out of our living rooms and spare bedrooms and everything. We've sort of intermingled the two, and that's been a really, really great thing. So I appreciate that. Last question I have, appreciate your time, by the way, today. And the last question kind of piggybacks off of what you just talked about, it with sort of almost a seamless transition, or almost a seamless connection now between work and home. What have you done personally, you yourself, to still keep the balance between home and work life, and how has that worked?
Well, I'll share that. I've been basically working from home for the last 3 decades. There have been times that I will be in and out of the plant and stuff like that. So not related to this, but just sharing what I've done over the years, is when I first made that transition from kind of pure engineering to more business and sales, I thought I could intermingle the two. I thought that I could, put some dividers up in my bedroom and work there. But what I found is it wasn't healthy at all. It interferes the two. There's ways to integrate your business life into your personal life, but there's got to be a separation. You have to have boundaries. And, I found that you have to have a separate space. And I know in today's situation, if you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and 5 kids, and that, that may not be possible. But as much as you can, have a separate space. When you get up in the morning after you go for your run or whatever you do, take your shower, put on, I do this every day. I'm sitting here in my house, but I'm in, my ABB logo, and I separate during the day my personal life from my business life. And I set hours, from 8 to 5. Well, that's kind of a joke. Or longer, that belongs to serving my customers. And I try to be available all the time. But that's another thing. Have a start time, have a stop time. When you get to the end of the day, walk out the door, close the door, shut it down, and go love on your family, or whatever it is that you do. Keep them separate. So at a high level, that's just me personally, and that's what I found works very, very well.
Well, I appreciate it very much, Ron. Again, as you know, the day and age in which we'll live is #WFH, work from home, is gaining more popularity, and more companies like Twitter and Google and Facebook and other industry leaders are looking to consider allowing certain portion of their employees to permanently work from home, as that is an increasing reality. Certainly helps to have advice from a veteran, 40-year veteran like yourself, who's done it for 3 decades and obviously has done it successfully. So I appreciate those words of advice that all of us can learn from, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us and sharing your perspective, and we wish you all the best.
You're very welcome, Simon, and you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.